Hi, everyone. Welcome to this moment and the Diamond Mothering with Caroline and Lisa. Welcome back, everyone. We're here to illuminate the core of the feminine force. And we have another story this evening from Lisa. And our theme this evening is about the superhighway, So we've got Lisa has a little reflection about that. What have you been thinking, Lisa?
Well, I was thinking about, I was thinking about one of the most important experiences of my life and how I actually stepped onto the superhighway by awakening my feminine force, and the difference was just incredible. So I had my last relationship was about 13 years, and it ended very suddenly for me. And maybe some of you have heard me speak about this before, but I unexpectedly found out that my partner was forming a relationship or in a relationship with a much, much younger person. And, you know, I don't know what they were doing, but I know that there was some form of relationship there which was created, and I found out about it, like, inadvertently.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody that's found out a moment or had a moment like that in their relationship, when you're completely trusting of the other partner and, just see the other, there's all these ways you see your partner, and all of a sudden none of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is all your dreams are taken from you in that moment. And I think those breakups that are that sudden are like, for me, it was like being evicted from my home, just being put out, on the veranda in the middle of the night with no clothes, nothing to wear, and freezing cold, right? That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
And for 3 days, and like I'm really grateful for this experience now, because while I'd worked with a lot of people emotionally, I'd never ever had that experience. And it really gave me a lot of insight into the way that emotions work, because everything I'd known to do up until that time, like, nothing worked, none of my tools worked. And I spent 3 days like pretty much well in the fetal position. There were times that I just wanted to die, which is like so not like me, but I couldn't see any future, like there's just this blank canvas, and that is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I remember thinking on the third day, I just decided that, because I could sort of get this, like, it was my thinking about things, it was just creating so much suffering, like, what am I going to do now? How could they do this to me? Blah, 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 blah. And I remember on the third day, it was around the third day, I thought, you know what? I know that I'm going to feel pain, but I'm damned if I'm going to suffer anymore. And I made that decision, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was just determined that I was going to use this to grow. I was going to use this to find my true self. I was going to use this to become a better person and to become more empowered in my life. And I just made that decision. And then I set about ringing people. And because I thought, somebody's got to know what to do. Like, there's got to be somebody out there. And like, I wasn't probably a person that would do that a lot, like, I think like a lot of women, it's like, oh, I don't want to burden people with my feelings, or people don't want to hear about me. But it wasn't for me to go on and on and on about what was happening to me. It was for me to say, this is what's happening to me. Have you got any suggestions? And I rang so many people, and I got some great advice on what to do in those states when you really you can't meditate, right? Because you just can't meditate, because your mind is all over the place. Anyway, what happened to me, I finally ended up ringing this friend of mine who was a Jungian expert. And Jung talks a lot about different universes. So I can be here feeling a state, and that's one universe. I can shift my state of being, and I can step into another universe. So I feel completely different, even though nothing's changed. It's just the inside me has changed. And he was telling me about this process, which, and it must have been interesting, because I must have been really ready to apply it. So right in that moment, as he was telling me the process, I was almost doing it in my inner world.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with me, you know, like the first part of it is just to vent, like just to get everything out, and just whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, just, you know, bring it out. And I'd been doing that for 3 days actually, because I had been going with my emotions and I'd been writing everything down. And then there was a point where it was like, okay, I can't change this. I can't do anything about this. I just have to accept it. I don't like it. I don't think it's cool at all.
Mm.
But I can't change it. It's happened. And I sort of was able to step into that place because I'd vented all the emotions. So the emotional charge had diffused a bit. And then I moved into this, okay, well, this has happened. I hate it. I hate that it's happened. It sucks, but I can accept. And I sort of came into this place where I could accept, okay, this is what's happened. I can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was almost like coming into that acceptance. It almost shifted me into another state, which was just like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. All of a sudden, I could see, like, it was so amazing. It was so amazing because it was like, because all the emotion had just subdued, I could all of a sudden see how all of this time I'd been handing over my power, how all of this time I'd never really been in my full self, how all of this time I'd been living a life where I was doing sort of his dream, not my dream, his dream. And all of a sudden it landed and I felt the force of it. And that was like, for me, that was like coming into my feminine force. And my daughter, like, I'd gone from like, she hadn't seen me because I was in the bedroom crying my eyes out, to running around the house, crying my eyes out in awe and joy and just going, oh my God. And she's going, Mum, are you okay? And I was like, I'm fantastic, you know, and like, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But what happened from that moment, and like, it just goes to show how powerfully emotion can suppress any clear vision of what's really happening, but also how powerfully, when you come to a full acceptance of a situation, you can shift into a moment that is actually incredibly beneficial for you.
Yeah.
Because that took me right back into myself. I wasn't separated from myself anymore, from the emotion. I had come home into myself by accepting and allowing that process to happen. And as soon as I came back into my feminine force, then it was amazing what happened. So this topic about the superhighway, for me, it was like all of a sudden I was in this flow. It was like, you know, I still had pain. So, you know, it's not like there was no grief or loss. Every now and then that pain would come up, but I would try not to attach a story to it. I would just allow it to come up and validate it. No, why wouldn't I feel grief? And I'd often find that would move through my body in a few minutes. But what happened to me, because I was in my feminine force and I was in this flow and I was accepting and allowing and completely surrendered, it was like the way was just paved for me. I remember thinking what it felt like for me was that there was this, you know, like a torrential stream, or like, you know, when the currents are really strong. And it was almost like I was given a stepping stone. And so I'd step onto that, and like the water would just be like flying around me. But then, oh, there's another stepping stone, and I'd step onto that. And that's sort of how I lived those next couple of months. And then it became more that flow. And even though there were times that I'd launch myself out of it and come back into it. But that experience of being in your feminine force, what it does, because you're feeling all of your body and you're feeling everything, it's like, I'm here right now and I have more capacity to enjoy this experience of life, and I have more intuitive capacity, because your intuition is just the feeling knowing that you have, right? It's a feeling knowing of what's happening, and it's a feeling knowing of where you should move to next, because you're in this moment. And so for me, that has become like this, it is a superhighway, because it's like, I don't muck around, you know. So, and not all the time, and I'm not perfect, but when I can stay in my feminine force, I'm not trying this and trying that and trying this and trying that. I'm not reaching out to that person and that person and that person. It's like, I know that's the person I have to reach out to. And that's who I reach out to, and I get what I need in that moment. I know that that's what I do. So it's a superhighway in that you're not trying to figure things out. It's like you're in a space where you're really guided, and you're intuitively living this life, that it's so much easier. Like, even with my daughter, it's like you go through these emotional upsets, but you know, like, you have this inner knowing, okay, well, this is what's going to happen next. And okay, we might not be able to resolve this right now, but we're in an emerging process, and you surrendered to that process. And so the best thing is going to happen for you the fastest. And like, I could never find some of the solutions that have appeared out of these moments for me when I've just surrendered and been in my feminine force. It's like, wow, I never could have thought of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I never could have created that by
Yeah,
myself,
yeah.
you know?
It's like you're in the superhighway is kind of like the true intelligence. You're swimming in the
Yes.
true intelligence with the true intelligence
Yes.
of life.
Yes.
You know, you're part
Yeah.
of it then, you know, because you've let
Yeah.
go of holding on to the sides, you know. It's an
Yeah.
amazing story. That's amazing. Like, it really kind of like an awakening moment, like, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
like kind of like a death, I would say, of an old identity, I would call that, you know, like,
Yes.
you know, even
Absolutely
though it was like a
was.
death of relationship, but that actually like was like maybe an identity that you had created for yourself that you thought was it was a kind of false identity, but was attached to a relationship,
Mm.
you know, that actually was needed to end. You know, it was at its
Yes.
end. It was an end point. You know what I mean? And okay, like, you could have told yourself the story that you were the victim and this happened and that happened or whatever, but really it was happening for you. You know, like, it was happening for your benefit because it had it had naturally came to the end of its days as such, you know, and that was just a symptom of it, and life telling you, you know, it's time to move on now, you know, Lisa, but you weren't probably moving on. Like, maybe you had other telltale signs before that, you know? What do you think? Lisa's frozen, I think. Yeah, so like, I just think that was probably a time that you just needed to have space for yourself to maybe digest what those issues or those challenges might have been. And, you know, actually the fact that you were able to
No,
oh,
sorry.
you okay? No, I
I'm
kept talking
Yeah,
there.
I'm back.
Could you
I
hear
think we
me?
have something wrong with our internet. So I didn't hear you, but I'm glad you kept talking. So I missed that. I'll have
Yeah,
to go back and
no,
watch it again.
yeah, well, I know, I was just saying that I think it was the ending. You heard me probably saying that it was the ending of an old identity of yourself.
Yes,
And I
yes.
was just
And
saying,
I'd never looked at it like that, but I think that's exactly what happened. And it had to end, and I could see that. Like, it was almost like there was a greater part of me that could see that. So
yeah,
while it was really painful, I actually, now I feel so grateful. I'm like, that the two of them gave me such a gift. And if there wasn't a third party involved,
yeah,
I wouldn't have been able to fully step into who I am now. So
yeah,
I'm even grateful for that, like, it was just like
yeah. And it kind of like
so perfect.
a cleansing of all those emotions that you kind of, but then for you to be able to move into that new stage of your life or whatever, you had to kind of feel into the emotions and
Mm,
let them be, let them come up and let them be heard, you know, the kind of way. And then so you
mm,
could actually come to a state of acceptance then. So I think what often happens then is people, they suppress that, or they go into a stage that they don't want to feel the emotions, then they can't get to the acceptance stage. It could take 10 years for that to happen, like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and then they
Or
can't,
longer.
yeah,
Like my
our
mum still is
lifetime.
holding on to stuff, and that's like, I don't know, 60 years later.
Yeah, you know.
Mm,
So it's such a powerful practice, like, isn't it, to really,
mm,
you know, to allow yourself to feel these and acceptance. And I always see it as like identities, because I suppose I was trained as a designer. I always see like the human being as being, we're just a form of an identity that keeps getting iterated to another level, you know. So like, each time
mhm.
it's a new version of yourself, a new version. It's
Yeah,
an update, an update, because
yeah.
you've learned a lesson, or you've integrated, or you've let go of something or some aspect of yourself, or you've grown and you've learned, because we're always growing and learning all the time,
Yeah.
like, you know. But it's really hard to let go of things. That's the
Mm,
thing, isn't it? You know, because like, I suppose
mm,
you probably had telltale signs maybe before that, like about the relationship,
mm.
but you
Well, see, I
might have,
hadn't really, and that's what
no,
that was surprised me so much.
okay,
So it was a big shock. But
yeah,
I think you're right about that. Like, just the letting go is sometimes hard, like that, the
mhm,
fear. So
mhm,
it does require surrender. And I think that's also where your feminine force, the more you can step into that, the
yeah,
easier that whole process becomes.
yeah. So I think the super highway definitely is attached to surrender, isn't it? It's a massive
Yes.
kind of,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
sometimes disappears in different forms, you know, but it can be a massive wake up call that like happened for you.
Mm,
Like, you feel there
mm,
wasn't any signs or anything like that, but to be able
mm,
to kind of know that when you surrender to it, that it actually brings something absolutely amazing. Like, and then by the
Yes.
third day,
Yeah.
you were like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I know. It was amazing,
Yeah,
actually. I was sort of surprised.
yeah,
Like, I never would have thought that you could go from one extreme to the other like that.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
hey, that's the power of the emerging process if you fully get into it, right?
yeah.
You
Amazing. That's
know?
what we're trying to
Mm,
teach here. That was amazing.
mm.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that
You're welcome.
powerful story. Really great, give great hope to people. And it's a great example of the feminine force at play.
Mm.
So would you like to tell people what we're up to tomorrow?
Yes, so we have an incredible guest on tomorrow at the same time. We have a supermodel, Alison
Canada.
Cavanan.
Canada.
Yes, I'm not very good at pronouncing
Yeah.
her name,
It's an Irish
but
name, yeah.
it's an Irish name, so I'm still learning my Irish. And she's coming to speak to us tomorrow on the feminine force field and talking about how she is a supermodel, supermodeling
Yes.
the feminine force in her mothering and probably also in her life. So we're really excited about that. And then the next day we have our second date, our series, our webinar series. And this time we're talking about the diamond in the rough. So this is discovering how you can actually get in touch with your feminine force and how you can learn to trust yourself, because not trusting ourselves is often something that women can feel quite intensely. And then we have some other exciting news, Carolyn. I think you wanted to share about this, what we've got coming up for the next year.
Yes, exactly. So tomorrow night, if everybody could, it would be amazing if you register, because we're going to be talking about the offering that we have to unfold during the year. So we've got a 12-month program that we're going to be unboxing different teachings each month. Myself and they're going to be released at the end of each month, and you'll have a chance to come on that journey with us. It's kind of a journey of self-discovery around with ourselves, and then our connection with our daughters, or and that you'll be supported, part of community that we're building through the year. And for people who sign up for this year and become students this year, next year we're planning to have a teacher training program where we'll be teaching these teachings to women to go out and kind of be able to train other women, because we want to spread this across the globe as fast as possible, because we know the power that it has for women, for their connection with their children, and for their home life, and for their business life, and their relationships across the board. So we're really passionate about this, and it's a cutting edge program around emotional education and creative thinking. So we're trying to push kind of the innovative thinking as well. So yeah, tomorrow on the webinar, the second webinar at the end, we're going to have a little talk about that, and about how you can get involved in that, and how we're going to be releasing it at the end of the month, starting on the 1st of March or 3rd of March. Actually, my
Yeah.
birthday. So yeah,
Carolyn's birthday. That's so good.
yeah,
And if you come to the webinars too, we have some free giveaways because we want to make it fun. So this whole journey needs to be about a lot of fun and adventure. So there are some free giveaways and some books and even some sessions with us. So we would love to see you live. And thank you very much for watching us this morning. It's been another joyful conversation. Always lovely to see Carolyn and work with Carolyn. I look forward to that every day, actually. It's fantastic.
oh, me too,
So
Lisa.
yeah, it's beautiful. So have a beautiful day, everyone, and thank you for watching.
Thank you, everyone. God bless. Bye.